Let me see. Oh, I think it's popping on finally. Okay, yeah, we're here. Great. Oh, now where are you? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Anna Chimay, and I am the Interim Executive Director of the Buffalo International Film Festival. Welcome. This is our 14th annual festival. We're here today celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day with some amazing filmmakers and some amazing producers from the National Film Board of Canada. We're very grateful and honored that you are here. I'd like to start off really quickly just by giving a brief acknowledgement. First and foremost, we are here on Haudenosaunee territory. This is the land traditionally of the Seneca, and we are incredibly grateful to be here. Nyaweh. One more thing that I would like to acknowledge are our incredible sponsors, without whom none of this would be possible. First and foremost, I'd really like to thank the New York State Council on the Arts. Oh dear. The Electronic Media and Film Program in particular, and also Governor Andrew Cuomo in the New York State Legislature. I'd also like to thank Erie County, the city of Buffalo, New York, particularly the Delaware District. I'd love to thank the Consulate General of Canada in New York. Your generosity has been incredible and we're so grateful. And of course, I would like to thank the National Film Board of Canada, without whom we wouldn't have this incredible program to share with you today. Other people I'd really like to thank quickly are the North Park Theater, our home theater. We cannot wait till you reopen. Birchfield Penny Art Center, Hallwell's Contemporary Art Center, Squeaky Wheel Film and Media Art Center, Lalena Media Company that made our beautiful site, Lipsitz Green, Chimay and Cambria, Media Arts Assistance Fund, Give for Greatness, Art Service Initiative of Western New York, Whitling Cane and Dry, Dark Alley Drive-In, Canisius College, the Arts Access Program of ASI, 1120 Projects, Albright Knox Art Gallery, and Buffalo Toronto Public Media. Thank you so much. And also I would like to welcome and thank our guests for being here. We have Cody Savard. I'm sorry, I should have actually asked your pronunciation. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, Cody Savard from the National Film Board of Canada. She is a producer there. We also have Donna Cowan. Is that correct, Donna? Okay, thank you, Donna. Welcome, also from the National Film Board of Canada. And we also have our amazing artists, two of my very favorite pieces in the program, where I truly love all the pieces. We have Thursday Jean Cuthand. Thursday makes short experimental videos about and films about sexuality, madness, queer identity, love, and ingenuity, which have screened in festivals and galleries internationally. She's completed her BFA with a major in film video at Emily Carr University of Art and Design in 2005, and her MA in media production at Ryerson University in 2015. She has performed at Live at the End of the Century in Vancouver, Performatorium in Regina, and 7A11D in Toronto. She is a Whitney Biennial 2019 artist. She is Plains Cree Scots, a member of Little Pine First Nation, and resides in Toronto, Canada. Mila Nkeko is Dene, oh dear, look at this is what I do. Dene, do you mind saying Keiko?
Dene and Dene Souflene.
Dene and Dene Souflene. I'm sorry. Thank you for helping me. Mila Nkeko is Dene and Dene Souflene. Thanks. She is an artist based out of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. She had a distinguished career as an artist, community leader, and actor, and is recognized for her exemplary work in reviving and teaching moose hide tanning techniques, which you'll see a little bit of in her video. This work has initiated a resurgence of the practice, shaping a broader community building movement within Canada, Pound Revolution Moose Hide. She is a founding member of Dene Noa?
Dene Nawo.
Nawo, oh dear. Dene Nawo. I'm so sorry, Mela, but I'm glad that you were willing to help me through that. Yeah, so the thank you, welcome. We're so grateful and honored for you to be here. We're so grateful and honored to host these works. I think it might be fun maybe if we started just briefly by kind of scrolling through the program and showing a tiny, tiny bit of the works that we're going to be looking at today. Thank you for your patience, everyone, while I go through. Oh, the beach ball of doom on my computer and try and pull this up. So this is a really amazing, amazing program. These pieces are all part of the National Film Board of Canada's collection. Will I pull this up, Cody or Donna? Do you want to speak a little bit about what National Film Board does and how we worked on and put together this program for everyone today?
I can speak to that. For those unfamiliar with the National Film Board of Canada, it's an extension of the Government of Canada, and we've been around for over 80 years now. And we are unique in that we are government funded, and we have the unique opportunity to create films that commercial production houses can't. So it's work like these that you've seen today that we are so lucky to produce and be a part of these filmmakers' careers. The collection is online at nfb.ca, where people can watch hundreds of films for free. And this is part of our Indigenous cinema page, which is our films made specifically by Indigenous creators.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's amazing. So I'm going to screen share and we'll just kind of scroll through the program. We'll pause a little bit longer during Thurza and Mila's pieces, but I'll show you the audience, some of the other content that's in there as well. This will be up for another, oh geez, I don't know, like 12, 13 hours. And then we'll be locking it up, and you can honestly find it through the National Film Board of Canada. But I really think that this program that was put together with the help of Jane, and what's Jane's last name? Please forgive me with my
Jane Gutteridge.
Jane Gutteridge, thank you. We would like to also really thank Jane Gutteridge because she helped to curate this program, and it really is amazing. And I think that these pieces speak in an interesting dialogue with each other. So let me just show you real quick, and then we're going to come back. We're going to speak to Thurza and Mila about their individual pieces, which again, I love. They're incredible. So screen sharing of the desktop. And then we're here. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay. There we go. So I'm just gonna talk over a little bit, and really just because all of you who are watching, there's a consulate general, thank you. All of you who are watching can watch this on your own. This is another one I love. Oh wait, let's start, just show you the first one. This is a beautiful animation. It's really fantastic. I'm gonna pull away though, because that's a bad place to kind of spot. That's a bad place to stop. We have this piece, Lake, which I believe Cody produced, if I'm not mistaken. This is incredible as well. Oh, this one's really lovely too. Repurposing of some archival materials. Very poetic.
Était comment ton école à 6 ans?
On était 7 divisions dans la même classe. Les plus vieux aidaient les plus jeunes. Il n'y avait même pas de toilette à l'eau.
That's a really gentle, sweet piece as well.
Where it came from, and I think
this one is quasi-local, I'd say, at least, right? Six Nations.
Because lacrosse is growing so fast.
Talking about lacrosse and some of the programs just north of here.
It's a traditional sport that is part of our.
Lacrosse is growing so fast.
With lacrosse.
There was
Another really
a
lovely piece.
void, but I didn't realize the scale of that void. Like,
This is another kind of beautiful slice of life. Another really recent piece as well, correct, Anna and Cody? Yeah. This is another very new piece, actually, right? This is hot off the editing table.
It was just launched last week or the week before.
Great to be in the
It's really great. Up, and here we are at Mila. And I'm gonna pause here a little bit longer. Can I show the opening, Mila? I love the opening of this piece.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about it if I can get us there. Can you hear okay? It's a good volume. Thank you.
It's so amazing. It's been a very long time since I've slept next to the river during breakup. I feel very lucky. I feel so lucky. What are you doing?
All right, I'm gonna keep scrolling because I really want the audience just to watch the program. And we might show, if we feel it's necessary, a little clip or something later on. I'm gonna pause on the moose really quickly. This moose hide that's being torn, correct, Mila?
Yes.
I befriend you.
Lift it up.
Can I help?
Yeah. Just tightening. Okay, this side.
I'm just please everywhere.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's neat. I like the smell of it.
It's fun. Video?
So now we're gonna scroll through, and I believe actually Thurza is next in the program. So that's kind of
A bit.
and I just love this opening too. So I'm gonna start there and then scroll in.
Hello. So how did you first hear this story? Like, how did it come up?
I've been trying to remember, but I know I was maybe 7 or 8, and do you know how Grandpa would just tell stories?
Yeah.
He just told me the story.
Also, priests didn't have gendered pronouns, so this character that we're going to talk about, like, we don't know if it would have been he or she. Like, we don't know how they thought of their gender, even if they felt that they had a gender.
I thought I'll just interchange he and she. much like Grandpa would do because his first language was Cree. The story begins with a young child. She's running across the wide open prairies, and we don't know where this child came from or where this child is going. And what struck me is that she was all alone.
So I'm going to stop there because I do want to interrupt your viewing pleasure, people. I'm going to have you watch. Let me just pull over here.
The next morning, she wakes up and the old lady is gone. But by her mat is this beautiful dress. The child, having barely any clothes, puts the dress on and goes on her journey across the prairies. And every time she tells stories and she learns new stories, the dress grows bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually, the child is no longer a child, the child is grown up. Every time she's coming towards camp, people know that she's coming because the dress is so long, it's raising up a cloud of dust. And the kids run out to the camp and they climb onto the dress and they get a ride into camp. And everybody comes to greet Woman Dress. That is how this person comes to be known as all over the plains. One summer.
Love this. Just maybe throw this
If they were like
spoiler in at the end.
Christianity. What do you think Woman Dress would be doing if they were like here now in contemporary times?
Probably traveling the world, telling stories. As long as we tell the stories, they'll live.
All right, you don't get to see the ending, audience. You're gonna have to go in there. I'm just gonna show a quick second or two from some of the other gorgeous, thought-provoking pieces in this program, and then we're gonna talk.
Bimea Kanda Audio Kata Wana Gobit Gobit. When I do you Hana Midapi Agane or take me.
And that's a really, really beautiful piece about language. And I believe it's the last one.
You know,
yep. Okay. So let's get on my stop screen share so you don't have to see my messy, messy desktop. So thank you for your patience and thank you for letting us scroll through that at random. I think honestly, they're just such strong pieces that you really can pop in at any point, and it's kind of fantastic and hard to turn away. So again, it's the last chance, y'all. Otherwise, you can search them out for yourself. But and you should either way. But I'd like to just kick it off really, really quickly and say, like, both films are absolutely gorgeous. They have very different aesthetics and use very different kind of tones to tell their stories. Do each of you want to speak a bit to your aesthetic choices and why you chose maybe Mila, neo-realist, kind of really personal kind of cinema, and Thurza, yours is very, it's an interesting way of compiling the story using the green screen technique and pulling from these archival and like reenactment type shots, and then having the woman dress there as the central he/she character moving throughout. It's really, really striking, that layering effect. Do both of you, whomever wants to go first, mind speaking a bit to that?
I'll speak a little bit to it. So I mean, the story with Woman Dress is basically that she was traveling the plains before contact. And obviously, when you're making a documentary about someone who's long dead, and we don't know a lot about her because of all that remains of her, is this story that's been passed down through the generations. I just wanted to get across the sense of like location and and Canada and the US and sort of like all these different sort of land-based things. And the way to do that was with a green screen. It was like the easiest way to do it, which was funny because like my producer was like not really sure about the green screen thing because it can look really cheesy, but I was like, no, we got to do it. So yeah, and it was all with like our archival NFB footage and like also some footage I'd shot in Saskatchewan.
I love it. So that's all NFB, the archival stuff, like the bison and.
Yeah, all the archival stuff was NFB.
Oh, cool. Very generous group, that NFB.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. I think I'm really glad you went with the green screen because I think it makes it so unique and just really works with the story and the character and all the themes. Mila, do you mind speaking a bit about your aesthetic as well? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I shot the whole film on my phone. And so we were out on the land quite a ways from town. And so power was kind of an issue as well. And so it was most all like self shot. So I would just place my phone up against like on a piece of wood against a tree to shoot some of the stuff where I'm putting my moose hide up on the rack. And mostly was wanting to just record just like the daily routine that we developed while we were there. I didn't start recording as soon as we got to camp. I started shooting for the documentary while we were there for a few weeks. So we were already kind of like in a nice kind of routine with my family. I was there with my children and my parents. So it was kind of like a visual journal and really capturing kind of like the seasons changing, because up here in the north, like the season changes kind of quickly. And it's also like, as you can see, just still snowing well into like the end of April, and wanting to capture just like the snow melting and the river breaking, and then just that whole time of year. Yeah.
I love that. And we have something similar down here, as I think I sent you a message about. Where are you located, by the way, just for the folks at home? Where is everyone located right now? I'm in Buffalo, we know that, but.
I'm originally from Slisley-Quea, which is also known on the map as Fort Simpson, which is where the Liard and also what's known as the Mackenzie River meet. We call it the Decho. There's two large rivers that meet. The Mackenzie River is like about 1,000 miles long. It goes all the way to the Arctic Ocean. And so that's where my hometown is located. And that's where our camp was. It was about an hour's west of Fort Simpson. And I live in Yellowknife, which is like the north part of like the Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories in Canada.
Awesome, thank you.
Also known as Denendeh.
Denendeh, if you say it properly.
And I'm originally from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, but I live in Toronto right now, Toronto, Canada.
Donna and Cody, I think we spoke about it, but just for the audience.
I am in the Toronto office, and I'm in Toronto as well. I'm actually from Penetangwisheen, which is on the south tip of Georgian Bay.
I am in Mississauga, which is also known as Edmonton, Alberta, which is a province in Canada. My dad is Dene Cree, my mom is Métis. We have lots of connections to lots of communities, Métis communities around here, which are St. Albert and Lac St. Anne.
Awesome, thank you. This is, yeah, really nice cross-border collaboration. Okay, circling back a little bit to the films and more general questions. Can you both, Thirza and Mila, speak a little bit about your process of production for each of these pieces, and maybe what kind of challenges and discoveries you kind of made along the way as you were creating them? I know we always start as makers with an intention, and then we end up wherever we end on our journeys. Some people might do it and get where they meant to go, but at least, yeah.
Yeah, so I was originally approached by the NFB to make a film for their 5 at 50 project, which was about the decriminalization of homosexuality. It was like the 50th anniversary. So I wanted to make a film about two-spirit people like before contact, just because there's always been this like, you know, kind of argument in Indigenous communities that two-spirit people weren't like really like respected or didn't exist even sometimes before contact. And so I wanted to like find a story that like proved them wrong. And so I put a notice on my Facebook being kind of like, does anyone have a story that's about like a two-spirit person like before contact? And my auntie was the one who said she had a story that had been like passed down from my grandpa. And then so we recorded the story, like we had to like have someone record her on her end because she lives in BC and me on my end in Toronto. And then we edited that, and then basically we hired Kylie May, who's a trans actress here in Toronto, to play Woman Dress, and she was great. And so we shot against a green screen, and Kylie had to learn how to dance from YouTube on set. And then basically we like went through like some of my footage from Saskatchewan, and then shot some extra stuff in Toronto for the backgrounds, and then went through NFB's archival footage, and that's how it came together.
Awesome. What about you, Mila?
So it was during the beginning of the pandemic. And so I made Kita for the NFB's pandemic group that came out. That I think there's still films coming out in that. Yeah. And so I was in Yellowknife, and I teach moose hide tanning. So I travel to communities across Canada, and so it was like kind of like the beginning of like hide tanning season. And so like all of my camps were canceled, all of my work was canceled, my kids were not in school. So it was just kind of like, what are we going to do? And so traditionally, like back in like the 20s, there was the influenza epidemic. And so a lot of people were talking about back then, a lot of people were told to go to their traditional territories and have set up camp and these like family camps. And so I was talking to my parents about that. And so we found a spot that was kind of like on the same side of the river as the community, Fort Simpson. It's really unpredictable with climate change as well. Like the ice is really kind of unpredictable. So we don't really want to go to the other side of the river and kind of have like a hard time with breakup or before breakup accidents can happen. Which unfortunately, there was a few accidents this summer because of the unpredictability of the ice. So we set up camp, and because my parents and I were still kind of working, so we would come to town once a week to check emails and other types of things. And when I would come home, I would upload the videos that I was taking. And so we were doing a lot of different activities out there, getting wood. Getting fish. I was making fish leather and like doing my hides. And so I was putting a lot of these clips on my social media. And then Coty sent me a message asking if I would be interested in documenting our camp. And I was getting a lot of really good feedback from the social media stuff because the whole world was on lockdown. And so there was a lot of people just in their apartments in cities. And so we had this opportunity to be on our traditional territory, and I got to be able to share a lot of the work that we were doing out there through social media. And so a lot of people found an escape during that time through that. And so with Coty and her team at the end of B, I got a lot of feedback and how to like best just to keep shooting and just to keep shooting in the way that I was shooting for, like my Instagram, and capturing our day-to-day lives. I was thinking of it more of like a visual journal, like capturing the day activities and also throughout camp, because we were there for 5 weeks, and just it was from like 3 feet of snow to all of the snow melting in like 5 weeks. So it was really like visually like a big change, and also in the weather. And we were there right when all of the birds started coming home to the north. So there was like all of the geese and swans, and then all of the songbirds would just fly through camp in the thousands. It was really incredible. And it was really great to be able to be there and capture some of that. Like with work and everything, you don't really get to be on the land for that amount of time. Like everybody has work or school, so we'll go for a weekend or 5 days at the most. But being able to be out there for 5 weeks, and just get into a good rhythm with the land and with our activities and with each other, I was really glad to be able to have the opportunity to share that story.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's palpable, your like love of the place and your pleasure at being there. And I was curious about the birds, actually. I was going to ask, there's like one of them makes a noise in the beginning when you hear snow falling, and then the snowmobile cuts through that kind of piece, and then you hear a bird, and is that a loon, or there's something in the distance? Anyway, there's a bunch of birds, and you see nature kind of like coming in and out of the camp in this way. And I love how you talk about it as sort of these rhythms. Do you mind expanding a little bit kind of about this kind of musicality going on there in the landscape? And then also in your piece, there's like actual music. There's a song being sung about spirits, and I know they were named, and we've all learned how good I am at pronouncing literally anything. So do you mind speaking a little bit more to that? I can put that in more of a question form too. Just can you please speak about your sound design and kind of the contrast in this soundscape where you have this really soft sounds that you have to really kind of lean in to hear, like the falling snow, and then you have these sounds of work and family life, and they're really kind of fill the space of the story. And then you have this music as well. And then I'll ask you about your soundscape as well, because I really love that too, and would love to talk a bit more about that song.
So through the NFB, Cody's team, I worked with Johnny Blairow, who's the sound guy on the film, and I filmed everything on my phone, my iPhone. So that was one of the things that I was really worried about, because there was a lot of wind. We were outside the whole time, and there was a lot of wind and a lot of distortion, and he was really able to clean it up. So I was so impressed by the work that he did with the sound, and just really picking out some of the things, and I didn't even know that one of the scenes where it was just all the birds flying by and you can hear them. I didn't even realize those were called red poles until he was like, this is a red pole. And he was really, he knew all of the birds, all the bird songs that was captured. I think with the sound, it's so interesting to be on the land, because there's so much, when you're home, there's just so much humming of electricity, and you don't really notice the hum of everything that's going on in your house. Even sometimes you can hear your lights when they're on. So when you're on the land, it's just there's so much happening in the world that's the sound of the snow falling. They're in the springtime, they're these big fat snowflakes, because there's more humidity in the atmosphere or whatever, and so they come down in these big fluffy flakes, and they just fall on your tent. We also have tarps up, so that really captures the sound of the snow. And the river, being able to sleep by the river, it's you can feel the earth rumbling, because the ice, there's just huge sheets of ice just grinding against the shores and like moving, and you can hear like when it, and then at the beginning kind of you can see where the ice was just kind of cracking, and then like you can hear the water starting to rush, and it's just like when you're out there it's amplified, and it's really like you can feel like the energy of the river starting to move like in your own body. So it's really it was quite powerful, and it's like felt like just the best way to welcome spring back in onto the land. And the river starts flowing, and then the sap in the trees start flowing, so we gather the birch water. And I actually just realized that my grandmother used to make birch syrup, and I didn't know that. I thought we just drank it because it tastes good. And so yeah, Johnny Blairow really like pulled a lot of the sound, and he cleaned it up. Like he did such a good job, and I was so happy to be able to work with such a great team with the NFB. So yeah.
Yeah. So with Woman Dress, we commissioned a song from there's a women's big drum group out of, I think, Winnipeg. And I don't know, it's like there's this weird taboo in Plains Cree culture where like women aren't supposed to touch the big drum. So so they're like they've been doing this group for I think a few years now, and you know, they're a little bit controversial in the big drum world. But we wanted them to like do the song, obviously, because, you know, they're like kind of challenging this like expectations of women's roles in traditional culture. So yeah, we commissioned the song. They gave us a few different versions, and they I think there's 3 different versions they gave us, and this was the one we went with. And it was kind of like every version they were kind of like making up on the spot. So like we'd ask them to record it again, and it would be like a totally different song. So this is the one we went with. And then, I mean, the rest of the sound design was like, you know, also like just sounds from sort of the images, like the buffalo running and sort of the birds singing and prairie sounds and sounds of the city and things like that. Yeah, but it was really exciting to be able to like have a women's big drum group in the film.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It's a song I've heard before. I believe is the song called Anishinaabekwe?
I'm not sure what they called
Okay.
it. Yeah, because I think it was like they kind of said they were like every time they were to record something, it would be something different, but they were like trying to like make something special for the film. So I'm not sure if it was like a song that they put like their own spin on or something. Could have been, yeah.
Oh, it's really beautiful, and I think it works well with the piece and keeping the tempo and the movement. You brought up. I just want to kind of circle back really quickly because you brought up the bison, and I guess I was kind of curious. You spoke to it a little bit in the beginning when we were talking about aesthetic and the use of the green screen, but because you know there's so little behind woman dress, I was curious kind of how you made your selections and why you made certain selections other than just expanding the landscape to this kind of like, you know, because woman dress travels all over and tells stories, that's what he, she, he, they do, which is another thing I'd love to circle back to in a moment. Is just your use of pronouns, and then going back to this idea of not having gender in the Cree language, and then, you know, post-Christian destruction. I don't know. I can't think of the right word for whatever that is and was. But that kind of rupture that happened there. But yeah, can we talk a little bit more about the archival selections?
Yeah, I mean, specifically with the bison, I mean, like obviously, like one reason I chose it was because that was like our food source before colonization came and killed them all to like subdue us. so that was our food source, but also because bison are very like, they're herd animals. So, you know, they're very social. They like stick together. And then to contrast that with the shot of the one bison who is like alone, just like sort of, you know, I mean, I'm sure off screen there's like a whole bunch of other bison, but you know, just this image of this lonely bison kind of like echoed the feeling of the fact that this little child was like running across the plains like alone after this sort of like catastrophe had happened with their family. Yeah, so yeah, it was to get across the sense of loneliness. And then just so many of the other shots were just pretty landscapes, or else there was that archival footage of the teepee and the chief and the people coming out of the teepee to like greet woman dress. And the reason I wanted to use that one was because teepees like before when we were more like living true to ourselves, I guess, I don't know, whatever, but we like did decorate teepees. Like they weren't just, you know, like right now they seem to like always be like just these white teepees, and that's like before we were like plains people are actually well known as like good painters because we would paint our teepees. So I wanted one that showed like a decorated teepee. And then with the pronouns, I mean, that was the thing is like I know in Cree language, there's people who are like originally Cree speakers will like go back and forth with he and she, like they'll kind of flip back and forth because there was not really a he or a she in our language. And so when my grandpa first told this story to my auntie, she actually didn't know it was about a two-spirit person because he was just talking the way he would normally talk. And then when she found out woman dress was two-spirit, she was like, oh, okay. So, and then it was also just really hard because I didn't want to like gender woman dress because, you know, it wasn't specified. I mean, we know she was born male, but we don't know how she actually conceived of her gender or his gender or their gender. So yeah, it was I didn't want to like put a binary on woman dress, especially if, you know, they had like more of a thought of their gender and more of like a ceremonial role. I don't know. I mean, there's like a lot of possibilities of how they thought of their gender, and I didn't want to impose my own assumptions on it.
I love that. I really think it opens up the story to so much, and also points to such an important kind of like, you know, the way in which language is part of how we think and how we see the world. And when you disrupt that, so I love that. It points to that rupture. It points to the identity. It really opens up the story and the character to just kind of be whatever he needs to be, and to just move. Can you, let me see, let me ask one more and then I'm going to pop back to Milau. Can you maybe speak a little bit about just this idea, you know, when you were talking about the song and how every version was different, and then also the story itself, like they don't really end, right? So do you mind speaking to that a little bit, Thurza?
The story not really ending. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that limitless sort of ending that we gave it. I mean, not really an ending because like obviously there are people who like go on with this story. Like I was told stories by my grandfather when he was alive, and yeah, like a story could like just go for a really long time. Like they were like living kind of entities, right? And people kind of like always put their own spin on them. So like things would be added and subtracted, and they would change and grow, and you know, like, you know, it's kind of like that game of telephone, like things change through the generations. But at the same time, like there's always kind of like this kernel of truth to them. Like there's traditional stories that have been used for like say like land claims trials, like to like get land claims rights back. So yeah, I just and then the fact that like there's two-spirit people even today, like there's people still living in the same way woman dress was living. Yeah, it's still a living culture. and that we haven't gone away. It's not over.
Thank you. And do you mind, just in case someone hasn't picked up or watched the film yet, what is Two-Spirit for the audience?
So Two-Spirit, it's actually, Two-Spirit is a term that only came around in the 90s, but it refers to like LGBTQ, Indigenous people. It's an Indigenous specific term. And Two-Spirit, the original conception was like a male and, well, a masculine and a feminine spirit in one body. And it's, yeah, so it's kind of trans, kind of queer. People have different definitions according to who you talk to.
Which is great. It's just like woman dress. It can be whatever it needs to be or wants to, if you're lucky. Yeah, I will say the one moment in the story that made me really sad, without doing any spoilers, was just when your auntie's talking about how her grandfather, you would never wanted to tell this story, even though, you know, I love it, just because of this kind of Christian influence that, you know, demonized these sorts of approaches to being and living. And yeah, so it's very uplifting, kind of fun piece. And then there's these moments that you're just kind of like punched in the gut. So I don't know how you did that, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, because it's such a beautiful story, and then you think, wow, this could have been lost. Like maybe my auntie's the only one who knows this story, and then if like I hadn't asked her, then we wouldn't know it.
That kind of brings me to a question for both of you. So you are sharing these stories. They're incredible stories, and I think that they tell a lot about your homes and like the, I guess, thought cultures that you're coming from. It's really generous that you do share them, I think. And also, I'm just curious in general, what are you hoping that by sharing them, your audience will take away? And I guess beyond just like the fact that artists and filmmakers need to make, that's how we find meaning. Like you're a storyteller, right? So you have to tell your stories. But beyond that, I guess, what are you hoping in these individual pieces people will take away from these films when they watch them? Hopefully today before 11:59 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think really I just wanted to like make people understand, like for Indigenous people to understand that like Two-Spirit, queer trans, Indigenous queer people were like here for a really long time. And then I wanted like the Two-Spirit community to like see themselves represented in like a historical kind of, I guess, document film that isn't, you know, disparaging and is respectful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. You do. Mila, what about you?
Well, I made the film for the to show what we were doing during the pandemic, taking from our traditional knowledge and history of what we've done in the past, and doing that again with my family. Like having my children out there for a long period of time is just like showing them that we are capable of living on the land for long periods of time, that they're capable of doing this type of work, and that we're like, this is knowledge that's in our family, again, to be able to be on the land for that long, for that period of time. Also within like a global context, like people were doing so many different things when we were all in the lockdown, and it's just showing what we would do traditionally as Dene people up here in the north. And also at the beginning, there was like the earth had a break from human activity in a lot of places, and there was a lot of stories about water in places being cleaner than it's ever been. Pollution was kind of clearing up in the air. Like if you just leave nature alone, it'll just rejuvenate itself. And so I was hearing a lot of stories about like places where people were seeing fish where they haven't seen fish in generations, or there was like a huge population boost in sea turtles, and just like all these kind of like different stories about nature just having a break from human interruptions and stuff. And so I really was grateful, like, to be from here where I'm from. We have clean water. There's a small population up here in the north that we have so much incredible land in our traditional territories that we're able to go and enjoy and still and practice our Indigenous way of life and just be Indigenous. Like, we had no cell service, we had no like television or anything, and like we were kind of off the highway a little bit. So, but the ice road was out, and then the ferry wasn't in, so there was like no traffic. There was like nobody going out there for any reason. So it was really like we were out there kind of like without not a whole lot of like outside interruptions in our days. So it was and I know that a lot of other families in the north were doing the same thing in their own traditional territories, and it was good to be able to come back to Yellowknife or come back to town and like share stories with other people who had taken their families out, and being able to share our like shared experience during that time, and also like being able to make a film. Like, we weren't the only people out there. There was all kinds of other people that were at their cabins or are making camp in other places. So it was just part of what we were doing up here in the north during that part of the pandemic.
Well, it's lovely to get to spend a little bit of time up there. It's incredible. So I really do appreciate you welcoming everyone to kind of your home and the land up there. Do you mind speaking just real quickly? We kind of touched upon this, but just the ways in which you see kind of landscape as a character, or if you even see landscape as a character in this film. And then I have a question for Cody after this.
Okay. For like from my Dene worldview, like we are, and I think there's a lot of Indigenous cultures that we are the land, like the land. There's like, you had asked about the song earlier about our spirit. Like, it's a song my dad was sharing with my boys, that when we pray or whenever we're acknowledging things, we're acknowledging the spirit of the water and the snow falling and the trees and the sap. There's a lot of like beings. It's not, the land is alive and there's beings, and we build a relationship with the land. So it's not like when you feel at home somewhere, it's because you're familiar with it. But there's also, the land also is familiar with you, and so you're feeling at home because the land has a relationship with you. You've built a relationship with the land, and so what you're feeling is that relationship you have with the being, like, of the land. So yeah, the land is a character. The land is a part of our lives. We like with moose hide tanning, I teach moose hide tanning, so I a lot of my teachings come from the process and teaching it. And there's just like a cycle of like this reciprocal relationship that we have with the animals, and it's that the spirit of the moose is still with the hide until you finish tanning it. And so you have to like be with doing the work with a positive mindset, and you're always taking into account the harvester, the person that took that moose's life, because that hunter has a relationship with the moose because of this the act of harvesting the moose. And so there's just like a whole lot of just reciprocal energy and relationships that we have with the land and the different parts and how we use the land. And yeah, so that's yeah, so the land is a character, but also like when we call ourselves, like, identify as Dene, even the word Dene, de comes from what we would say water, so like the river, flowing river, and ne, Dene, ne is the land. So it's like we're people of the water and the land. And so it's just in the word that we identify as a people. So.
Oh, wow. So if it's a character, it's family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's us.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I'm curious real quick, just when you said you work with the fish skin, what kind of fish is it?
So I was just experimenting with the fish skin, and it's a burbot. It's like a fish that feeds at the bottom of the lake. And when I was a child and being on the land with my grandfather, we would get really big burbot, like huge. And he would just like, he would take the skin and just peel it off like a sock. And so I haven't seen anybody do that since I was like a really small child. And so we had some burbot, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And so we had 4. So I practiced, and like by the last one, I was able to get it like off really pretty well. So I like imagine my grandfather, he's passed away now, was pretty impressed with that. And just wanted to make some fish leather with it. So I'm still softening it, and I need to like call one of my friends in Toronto actually to see how she's gotten hers soft.
Well, that's awesome. I actually in my life I study and document lake sturgeon. So I was just curious because I'm a fish person myself and a water person. Anyway, that's really cool. I'm just curious too, and forgive me, and don't answer anything you don't want to ever that comes out of my mouth. But around here, I know some of the nations, like women don't get to fish or hunt traditionally anyway. And even still, like very rarely, like do female identifying or two-spirited even people get to go out and be part of like annual hunts or events. Like you'll have the young men and the old men, which just means if you have children or you don't or something, but you don't. So I love seeing you working with like the skin and pulling the membrane off. Like it's just such a striking and intense image. But do you mind speaking to that? And is that something that is also the case for Dene or no?
So both my grandmothers hunted, and both of my grandfathers helped my grandmothers tan their hides. And so there is a lot of shared work when you are living on the land. It was really difficult and challenging at times, but in my family, I know that like both my grandfathers and my grandmothers shared the work to get things done together. And so I teach a lot of I teach, and so we have a lot of our the men in our community help with a lot of parts of hide tanning and stuff like that. But it is I think being able to do that type of work on your own is pretty like badass. I'm really I'm so impressed when I see new hide tanners, because I know how hard it is to start tanning and learning on your own and finding elders, because it is difficult to find teachers that do the process in the traditional indigenous and techniques and stuff like that. And it's in different, like before COVID, I've traveled to a lot of different communities in Ontario, in New Brunswick, in Alberta to help bridge that gap in knowledge that we've lost because of residential school and colonialism. And but this spring, because of COVID and like the social distancing on social media, I've been able to see so many young two-spirit and young women in different communities just work incredibly hard on their own to like bring back this knowledge for themselves and their community. And it's so inspiring, and it's so beautiful because it is really hard work, and it's really rewarding, and you do feel physically strong. And because of like the protocols that we have and the reciprocal relationship we have with the animal and the harvester, you become really like, you have like a spiritual connection, and you feel really good about like yourself, like it's super positive work. Yeah. I can talk about moose hide tanning for days, so I'm just gonna stop.
Well, I'm here to listen later on, definitely. It's so fascinating to me. I've only seen moose in real life like 4 times, and every time I was just, my mind was blown. Just that enormous body on these tiny little stick legs, and then they're so fast. I don't understand how they function or exist at all. I love animals like that. Platypi, octopi, where you're like, what, how did you evolve? I just want to circle back around to the question, and you can tell I'm not an organized thinker, probably. I apologize. This is really fun for me, and I hope it's not horrifying for you. But Cody, as a producer in all this, can you maybe speak to me a little bit about why you think it's important to produce these works, as well as what you're hoping audiences take away from Thurza and Mila's amazing pieces and all the other ones like Lake that you produced?
Yeah, I think given that we are a public producer, we have immense duty to showcase perspectives from all over Canada. And I think that so much of like filmmaking and media follow like very traditional structures that can be really rigid and really putting things in boxes. And I think that if we want to kind of create important work and relevant work, we need to really push outside of those boxes, and we need to just let the films and let the filmmakers be what they're supposed to be. And I think that's kind of the privilege of working where I work, is we can take that space to let the films be what they want to be, as opposed to, and they're definitely like, there are still, unfortunately, restrictions, like it's not perfect, but I think that there is sometimes a little bit more flexibility and space than in other say environments where I've worked. So yeah, it's I think it's really great sometimes. Yeah.
Well, you seem to be very good at it and have a good eye for development. What do you enjoy the most about doing all this?
All of it. It's there's just been some incredible moments, like when you get to finally, I mean, everyone that works in film is like, when you finally get into post and then you get to kind of see even the first assembly, and you're like, oh my, that's just like a feeling. And then of course there's the feeling that I think we don't get as much anymore, which is when you get to see it in a theater, which I think everyone talks about, is like, that's such a incredible feeling, is when you find all that hard work and you get to see it on the big screen, which we don't get right now, but that's another feeling. And then just even sometimes being in production, like, there's just lots of feelings. There are just lots of great feelings. Yeah. There was one moment, I think, for Lake, which was the first time the National Film Board had an all Indigenous female production crew in its 80 years. And so there was just a moment that was about Indigenous women's labor and women fishing, which again, I think, I can't speak to Alex's process, but worked with the phenomenal director, Alexandra Lazarewicz. And I think she wanted to showcase that women are involved in these labors. And so we're having Métis women ice fish, and then we have an all Indigenous female production crew. And it was just like, this is pretty badass. Like, this is pretty awesome. So yeah, there's all of these kind of like wonderful moments.
It is badass, and I love that piece as well for reasons I've probably revealed a little bit by now. I would love to say this, Thurza, Mila, Cody, whatever you produce, Donna, you as well. We have a beautiful home theater here in Buffalo, and when it opens, the North Park, it's like 600 seats. It was built in like 1920. There's like a fresco on the ceiling. It's unbelievable. The sound is incredible. Please, please, please come show your work here in Buffalo, especially Thurza and Donna. I know where you are, and you're very close by. So please come down. And that kind of brings me to my last question, which I would love to just keep you here forever with me, but I don't want to torture you. I want this to be a good fleeting memory. But what's next for everyone? Because I love the work and I want to see more, and I'm sure the audience does too. Do you mind just kind of going through each of you, including you, Donna, and just tell me maybe what you're working on now, or what's in the pipeline that you want to talk about? I know some people are very private about what's next, but whoever wants to go first, and I definitely want to hear from all of you if you would.
I'll go first. So right now I'm in post on a short drama called Quesco Seu, which is about a woman who, there's this problem in the prairies where women are getting abducted by cab drivers. And so it's about that story, but also about the Northern Lights. And she gets this sort of like power. It's like based on a feature that we're also in development with, which is also about this like sort of magical power this Indigenous woman gets where she can set fire with her mind and goes and kicks ass. So that's what I'm working on right now.
That sounds amazing. Please keep me posted on that. I would love to see that. What about you, Mila?
So I had my friend Leslie Johnson do the editing for Kita, and we had worked on a film before this called Revolution Moosehide. It kind of follows the story of myself and a couple of my peers through the processes of learning how to reclaiming the process of high tanning. And it was shot over a few years, and so it kind of goes through a lot of different timeline on that one. It's pretty good. That'll be showing at the Red Nation Indigenous Film Festival in November in Los Angeles, and well, online. But and then we're also just on researching for a new documentary. Hopefully we'll be working on that pretty soon in the new year.
Well, please also share the Moosehide work. I'm very, very curious about that. What about you, Cody and Donna?
I'm presently in post on a feature documentary about love and intimacy in senior care facilities called Love the Last Chapter. I'm also in production on a feature documentary about kind of discussion and dialogue in Arab women communities. It's called Arab Women Say What, with the incredible director Nazreen Baker. Another Curve project is being released today, I think, today or tomorrow, by Métis filmmaker Connor McNally. It's called Very Present. And I have some other wonderful projects, but it's going to take a minute. So yeah, there's some really exciting stuff happening as well.
Well, I'll have to keep tuned in to NFB and look for the releases and sign up for newsletters. What about yourself, Donna? Thank you so much, Cody.
Well, you have an in now that you know Jane and I, so to Cody's work. So we have just launched some more fabulous films this year. In the spring, we launched Stateless, which is about basically colonialism on Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And that is traveling in festivals now, and we'll have a theatrical release in the new year. And at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, we just launched Thomas King's, Michelle Latimer directed Inconvenient Indian, which is based on Thomas King's best-selling book. It is tremendous, so hopefully you can catch it at upcoming festivals. It will have a theatrical release in Canada, and I'm sure it will have a US launch as well. So stay tuned for that. And in production is a film by Tanya Tagak called Throat. So we're very much anticipating that film. So there's lots coming out of the National Film Board. We have a huge collection. We have lots of Indigenous made films that you can see on nfb.ca or at festivals around, and hopefully at next year's Buffalo International Film Festival.
We would love that. We are always on Indigenous Peoples Day weekend, so we do like to acknowledge. I mean, we're also in Buffalo, so this is a place where many borders meet, and probably one of the coolest things about Buffalo. Otherwise, it's just kind of a post-industrial wasteland. where we polluted all of our water. So working on that though. But anyway, thank you all so much. This is honestly, it's one of my absolute favorite programs in the festival. I am so grateful and honored to work with all of you. NFB is incredible. I mean, we don't have anything like it down here. So America, if you're listening, amongst the many things that you should be doing, this is one of them. Thank you so much. You know, I really can't express how grateful we are and how amazing this program is. So I really hope that the people watching right now do watch the program while they can. Thank you so much, Cody, Donna, Thurza, Mila. It's been wonderful to spend an hour with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Say hi.
Thanks.
Masicho.
Thanks.
Marcy.